Okay, we're ready to go. We're ready to proceed when you are, Anna.
Okay, thank you very much. I will call this meeting to order at 10:01. Good morning, everyone. I will read the land acknowledgement. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Adiwendurrung, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest? No? Then moving on to the adoption of the agenda, can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda, please? Mary has moved. Tom has seconded. All those in favor? Anyone opposed?
Oh, sorry.
Anyone opposed? No, then that is carried. We only have one issue to discuss today. It concerns the Kiefer Mansion, and before we do any discussions here, I'm gonna call on staff to make a report on that project. Nick, do you wanna, is Walter present too, or is it just you, Nick?
Walter's here too.
Okay, so whichever one of you would like to go first to talk about this project to the committee.
Sure, Walter, would you like me to start and then you can fill in details after?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I think yeah, we'll fill in the details and answer any questions anybody might have. But again, this is a project on the site that is designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, and obviously there are heritage implications associated with any development on the site. So Nick, as the subject matter expert, he'll lead us through the process.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Walter. Yes, so there's a proposal to, I guess, redevelop and repurpose the site of the Kiefer Mansion, as Walter mentioned, designated under Part 4 of the Act. There's been some discussions with a potential purchaser for the property, and my understanding they would like to proceed. And as part of the final due diligence, they'd like some feedback from the committee on proposed redevelopment of the site. So the general intent is to keep the existing Kiefer Mansion intact, use it as an inn, refurbish the interior, and then over time to add on to the site with some additional features. There's proposal for a small banquet facility, expanded hotel in a separate building with additional rooms, and making use of a bit of the slope of the land to help accommodate the building. And then additional areas of the site where there's proposed to be like a pool area and gazebos and sitting areas and a building associated with the pool as well. So there were some initial drawings shared with the committee and the agenda package. And then there was a meeting held with the purchaser last week just to review the details of it. And through that discussion, I thought it would be a good time to get some feedback from the committee while they go and revise and finalize their design. My understanding is there's also going to be a zoning bylaw amendment, I guess, in conjunction with the redevelopment. So that's another consideration too. But they want to get some of the details finished up and kind of a general concept that they can present along with that zoning amendment. So since it's designated, approval of a heritage permit is required, which obviously needs feedback from the committee. And before the final drawings were done, I wanted to come to the committee now and just get some feedback on it. There were drawings shared with the agenda, which we can pull up if we'd like, just to help the discussion. But other than that, they're looking for feedback from the committee. And then what we can do is between Walter and I and Anna just put together some comments to the committee or to the applicant, sorry, on behalf of the committee.
Well, Nick, and thanks for that introduction. With respect to the kinds of comments that we're going to be looking for or seeking, maybe you can guide us through that and the nature of the comments that we'll be looking for.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So in, I guess the thing to keep in mind when looking at providing comments for designated property is one of the key things to look at is what the impacts are on the attributes of Kiefer Mansion. And the attributes are associated really with the interior of the building as well as exterior, but also there's part of the designation bylaw speaks to views and vistas. So what is the primary there is views of the mansion and from the mansion from public streets. So the area along both road frontages really along the property, one at the bottom of the hill and then one as you go down the slope. Those are really the key views. And what they've done with the design is tried to push all the new building towards the back of the property to really maximize the openness of the property and views. So I know they're looking for feedback on, I guess, the approach they've taken with that in orienting some of the buildings. And then if there's feedback from the committee on things like building size and how the buildings are integrated and some guidance for them on building design too. That's something that they're working on refining just to give a better picture of what the redevelopment will look like. And then also you'll see if maybe we can pull up the site plan, Justin. That would help.
And just and another thing to keep in mind while you're doing that, Nick, thank you. You have to also keep in mind that there will be a planning application that will be required in conjunction with any development of the site, as well as a heritage permit. So there will be plenty of opportunity to discuss in very significant detail things like colors, architectural style, architectural details, things like that, to ensure that any new development on the site is in keeping with the heritage structure that's on the property and consistent with the heritage attributes of the site, including the vistas. So at this stage, it's very, like you said, it's very preliminary. So the main thing we're looking at is massing of the buildings that are proposed on the site and how they primarily impact the attributes. The one attribute that Nick was referring to, which is the views and vistas from the streets. So I think if we concentrate on that, keeping in mind that there will be plenty of opportunity at a later stage through either the planning application process or through the heritage permit process to address a lot of the significant details that we're going to have to be looking at also.
That's a good point, Walter, that this is really the initial review by the committee, and there is certainly more detailed review to occur, and it's really to give guidance for the initial what they're proposing for the site. So maybe if we take a look at the site plan, which I think is just the next page.
Yep.
So you can see here on the drawing that there's the Kiefer Mansion and lawn area in the middle. Existing walkway being retained up to the building and parking really in the location where the entrance is into the property now. And then what they've done is oriented parking spaces an angle like that, and just to allow for circulation around, retaining some large trees in the middle of the parking area. And then on the, I guess, east side of the site, no, west side of the site, towards the back, that's where the area is proposed for the banquet facility and an events space there. And then on the far east side of the site is where they're proposing the new inn building, and that will be hotel rooms in there. And then you can see the green circles, that's the pool area and the different elements associated with the pool. And then further towards the south of the site, there's 3 gazebos they were looking at to go along with the outdoor pool area, and then a pool building and change rooms just to the north of that. There are some initial thoughts of what the height and things will look like. If we go to some of the next pages, there's some of those in there. All right, so that's the ground floor plan of what they're thinking for the banquet and events area. If we go to the next one, Justin. And that's the side elevation. So they're trying to keep the height low. So they're proposing a basement area as well with recreation space in the building, and then the ground floor is showing here a 17-foot height. So really a single-story building, albeit a very tall first story, but single-story building for the event center, currently proposed for the back of the site. If we go to the next one, Justin. Yeah, and this is the footprint for what the hotel extension would look like. And that's just a layout, but if we go to the next one, I think that's where the elevation drawing is. No, one more. Oh, there. Sorry, more than I thought.
There we go.
There we go. So what's being proposed is, and they've just included some kind of sample images throughout the drawing. So that's what the one on the bottom is. Doesn't necessarily represent what they want to build, but just inspiration, I guess. So trying to make use of the slope with incorporating the basement of the hotel into the slope. And one of the comments provided back was to see if they can do more of that, just so that you don't have a full 3 stories above ground. So I think that was something that staff had just provided initial feedback on. But as it shows now, there's be 3 stories above ground. And I can't remember if there was another couple drawings after that.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, yeah, there was just
yeah.
So maybe if we go back to the site plan, that just gives some context to what the building footprints will look like. So Walter, was there anything else you wanted to add, or Anna, or should we open it up for feedback?
Yeah, that's pretty much that's a great summary. And again, the buildings on the top right corner, which would be the northeast corner of the site, the intent there is to build the buildings into the slope of the site, which is a significant slope, as you all know. And I think the intent was to try to make sure that the buildings are not, as much as possible, not interfering with the views and vistas of the heritage building. So I think that was the goal of the person drawing, and whether or not they've achieved that, that's something for us to discuss and to get some feedback to them about.
Okay, any comments from the members present before I make mine? Jonathan?
Sorry about that. I'm not sure if you can even say, but I guess if this was a builder who has a history of doing historic appropriate development, like, you know, like a Best Western versus Vintage Inns or something like that, that we would have more confidence that they were going to build something that was appropriate and reflected the historic nature of the building.
Yes,
Or,
Yes, it's the intent, and I think the requirement of staff, and because they will be required to get a heritage permit from the city in consultation with the Heritage Committee, they will be required to hire a qualified heritage architect. in order to ensure that the design of the building is sympathetic to the heritage structure on the property, like I said previously. So, but there will be a qualified heritage architect that we will be requiring, that will be preparing the drawings for the site.
Does that answer your question or concern that you had, Jonathan?
Yeah, I guess that would mean there is some structure to that process rather than, I guess the worry is they just come with the design and then it's hard to change that once it's sort of created. So if it was input during or before, then it's a better chance of it being a positive result. But okay.
Yeah, Jonathan, through you, Chair. I think the important thing, because it's very preliminary at this stage, and they just need guidance. Basically what we want to get back to them about is the massing of the proposed buildings, and what impact the massing will have. Like I said previously, the details of the architectural design, architectural elements, colors, these things will be addressed through the heritage permit process, which can get very detailed, and through the planning process. So they will have to make a planning application, which will involve a public meeting. So more detailed plans will have to be submitted at some point, and you'll have an opportunity as a committee member, and the committee will have an opportunity to weigh in on those various details.
Okay. I also just wanted to say the Kiefer Mansion probably has a lot of emotional baggage for a lot of citizens here in Thorold. And it's important. It's arguably in downtown Thorold, our most important heritage site because of the connection to the family who built it and to the canal, of course. However, we have to keep in mind that in order to save these buildings, changes are inevitable. It's a huge, huge house on a big site, which needs to be maintained. And in order to do that, to have a prosperous business on that site is the best chance for that to happen. And I'm not telling any members to vote a certain way. You have to vote the way you see fit. But I just wanted to point that out. And as Jonathan has already said, the massing, if it is done right, is acceptable. Is that what I understood from you, Jonathan?
I'm not immediately against it, I guess, because it can either be appropriate or not, but I understand the economic. If it was viable, it would have been a bed and breakfast hotel of the last 5 years. Like I can see why it needs more economic potential to be viable of having additional rooms and but yes, I agree.
Okay. And already there have already been some comments made by staff, by Walter, about how keeping the same massing, the layout of it could still be improved to, like you made a suggestion of doing the layout to the of the building to the east of the property, which will accommodate the additional rooms slightly different, so that we could maybe do with less height on that particular building, from what I remember. Like, would that still be in the discussions if the same amount of rooms could be maintained, which is basically one of the key issues? There needs to be a certain number of guest rooms available in order for the project to be viable. Walter, is that something that the planning department would be discussing with the developer?
Yeah, that's our goal. Again, commensurate with any recommendations or comments that we may garner today through this meeting. Our goal is to ensure that any new construction on the site is secondary, and it doesn't significantly impact any views and vistas to the mansion itself from the public realm, which would be on the east side of the site. I think there's below the hill there's a park, and that commemorates the canal, I believe, and that used to be on that site, and from St. David's Road, which is to the south. So those are the two, from the massing perspective, those are the two most important areas to view the site. It appears as though they've gone to some length in terms of where they're placing the buildings in order to keep and preserve as many of the trees on the site as physically possible. And but then again, that it's the planning process through either a zoning amendment and or site plan approval process where we will deal with those details in terms of where structures can go relative to trees in order to make sure that the preservation is viable. You know, details like that, and again through the heritage permit process, where you can address a lot more detail that you can't address through site plan process, which is the architectural details of the buildings that are being constructed, the colors that are going to be used, materials that will be used. Those things can be addressed in extensive detail through the heritage permit process, to a degree that you normally wouldn't be able to address in the site plan process.
Okay, thank you very much. To the prospective buyer, what is important is to be assured that he can have all the amenities that are proposed on this plan drawing on this site in order to make this a profitable business. And our job is basically, are we okay with that? And how do we proceed from here, Justin? Or also Nick, Walter, if you have any further input of how we word this, whether what our recommendations are.
Well, I haven't really heard anything yet suggesting any significant changes that would be made to where the buildings are located. You know, you mentioned, Anna, Chair, that there may need to be some consideration of the height of the buildings at the northeast corner of the site next to the park. But other than that, you know, if the committee members have any other suggestions to consider, and then we can incorporate them into a resolution. But that's the way I would recommend going forward.
Then I'm asking the committee members, Tom, Councillor, Mary, Dave, Jonathan, do you have any other comments?
Well, it sounds good to me. I think they're doing everything right.
Okay. Jonathan?
I would just add one other thing. Well, one, if the proposal was to actually attach like that banquet to the building in some weird way, I think I would have a lot of concerns about that. The fact they're kind of separate leaves the building intact and the nature, because I think it's also probably a difficult building to do that too anyways. So that's a big positive.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell from the elevation how high that hotel comes up because it's so far down. Does that like bring it up to the level of the porch, or do you have any idea like how high it actually rises to the first floor?
Yeah, unfortunately we don't have any. We sort of have an idea of how high it might be, but we don't have any survey evidence of the elevations that we're actually dealing with in order to. So until we get that, and you know that information would have to come forward when detailed plans are submitted with the site plan application. So again, but you know, just having a general comment of you know. A consideration the committee might want to look at is something to the nature of that the structures be of a scale and height so that they don't overpower or block the heritage structure from views and vistas from the public realm. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if that's like a 3-story drop or like whatever that elevation all the way down to the road.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I also think it's a very positive thing that the larger buildings are all located to the back of the property where they will be least intrusive. The exact nature of as Walter already pointed out, designs have not been submitted yet, so there's not something already in the works, like you pointed out, Jonathan, that might be difficult to judge after the fact. I've also been led to understand that the developer is extremely willing to work with Heritage Thorold about the design, very appreciative of input. That, of course, we are not professionals, but we will have input when the designs are being evaluated according to the heritage permit. The fact that a heritage architect is to be involved in this is a huge bonus, because that person will, of course, be experienced in projects like this and keep the integrity of the heritage value of the original building in mind. And so are there any other comments? Tom, do you have any comments?
Not really. I really do like the comments and the ideas that have been brought forward to this point. And I think we will need further information as we go down the road of this process, and possibly a meeting with the developer would also be something that where we could sit face to face and ask them, the company certain questions. So, but at this point, I'm very pleased with what I've heard so far.
Okay. Councillor, any comments from you?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. One is, and I think it's our major role here as the Heritage Committee to ensure the preservation of the mansion. That's, the prime focus. And we know that it does take a lot of money to look after a heritage property, especially one of this scale. And if this is a means to ensure that the Kiefer Mansion will be protected for a very long time and looked after, then to me that does make sense. One thing I do want to point out, and it's been spoken about regarding the massing, even though it's not a heritage point, I do want to just mention it now, in that we do need to be aware of the neighbors in regards to that massing. Not just does it take away from the mansion, which is, again, a priority to ensure that it does not, but also that some of the massing doesn't encroach or disturb neighbors to an extent that we could have perhaps avoided some of that in the first place. So that's another side point that perhaps, Walter, you can keep in your notes and present that to the developer. But I do agree and like that a lot of the new development is at the eastern end. I think there's fewer neighbors there. In fact, there may not be any. So that's very good. And I look forward to seeing some proposed ideas once a heritage architect has looked at the project and made some suggestions. So, thank you.
Yes, Walter?
Yes. Thank you, through you, Chair. Again, that's something that we absolutely have to look at when we're doing our planning analysis. We have to, there may be two competing aspects of the review of anything that happens on the site. One will be from a planning perspective, we have to look at compatibility with neighbors and surrounding land uses. So absolutely, that's an important component of our review for the planning application once it comes forward, which would be a zoning amendment and a site plan application. And then the Heritage Committee will have to sort of consider the heritage impacts of any proposal. And then the overall recommendation that Nick will be putting together in a report at the end of the day will sort of try to balance both of those issues. Nick, did I get that right?
That was well said. Yeah.
Okay. Then, Justin, how do we proceed now? What is
I
the
can put
correct
up
procedure?
sorry, I can put up a proposed motion here. And then since I noted a lot of the comments were just general comments that staff can probably take with them if Walter and Nick are good with that, because then some of those other details will be incorporated in later stages, would be my thoughts at this point.
So do we add anything to this that, with the future considerations of a heritage permit and a heritage architect being employed kept in mind? Or do we just, how safe are we in just supporting the proposed concept without making that addendum?
Yeah.
Nick or Walter?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. If the committee feels it's important to engage a qualified heritage architect, then absolutely include that in the resolution if you feel it's important.
Yeah, I mean,
I also thought.
Sorry, Nick, was it you talking? I can't see you on my screen.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I was just going to say, you could say as subject to detailed review through a heritage permit or something to add a bit of a qualifier.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That would be good.
Because otherwise it's basically a carte blanche, right? So, and we're not trying to be difficult, but from what I understood, the heritage planner is required anyways. From what you said, Walter, even in projects where the original plans are drawn up by a regular architect and not a qualified heritage architect, they have to be reviewed and evaluated by a heritage architect before any additions to a designated building can be built. So if a heritage architect did the original concept, and that would maybe only have to address the exterior of the building, because the interiors, the developer can do whatever he wants. But if that were already addressed by a heritage architect, then that problem of maybe the first concept that's being proposed of the architectural drawings would not be basically vetoed by a heritage architect after the fact. Am I correct there? Yes, Walter?
Yeah, Nick's suggestion with that qualifier, I think, is important to add to the resolution. That way, you're saying that generally speaking, it looks all right, but we're going to need to look at the details when we get to that process. So, but I'm not sure if you want to include any other qualifiers like the one I suggested in terms of the scale of the buildings on the northeast corner of the site that are being proposed, the hotel and the associated ancillary buildings next to the hotel addition. Make some kind of general statement about that might be appropriate also if the committee feels it's appropriate.
Okay, Justin had his hand up.
Justin? So there's a couple points flying around. So one, I have see if this first one is good, that a qualified heritage architect be employed for the project. So that's one. I see some nods, so I assume that's good. And then I've got one so far.
I think it's essential.
And are you in favor of that, Nick and Walter?
Yeah, I don't have a concern with that being included. But Nick's suggestion of the first qualifier being that expressing support, as was in the original resolution that was shown, subject to obtaining a heritage permit
Yes,
or something like that.
yeah, yeah. So, and then your suggestion with the massing of the building to be maybe redistributed if necessary to
Minimize visual
minimize
impact.
impact.
Yeah.
Yes, it's maybe more of a planning than a heritage aspect because it's so far to the back of the property, but I would agree with that as well, that if it's possible to redistribute some of the area in that building to the northeast towards the eastern boundary of the property. I remember you making a suggestion like that.
Yeah, well, what I was suggesting in terms of the impact was impact on the heritage attributes of the building.
Yeah. Okay.
And not impact on neighboring property, because that would be a planning issue.
Yes. Okay.
On neighboring properties, but impact on the heritage attributes and Nick, maybe you can help me here.
Yeah.
Or visual integrity or views and vistas from the public realm.
And I think it would be a bit of a factor of what the design would look like, because if you were to redistribute it might make it better, it might make it worse. So I think that would be something, that would be something that the architect would have to look at, because it could be great from a planning and compatibility, but it could be very bad for heritage. So it is a balance, but I think it's something they should look at and see what can be done. Maybe there's a couple different ways to approach it.
Yeah, the thing is, if the design is right, the massing won't really be that much of a problem, even on that building, I think. But if you want to, just a second, if you think we should include that, then I definitely would take your advice on this. You are much more of an expert in these kind of things than we would be. So, but let's just see what Justin has to say. Okay. Justin?
Yeah, so through you, I added number 1 to that the project be subject to obtaining a heritage permit. Yes. Number 2, that a qualified heritage architect be employed for the project. And then 3, right now I have that the views and vistas be considered when adding additional buildings to the site. Or is there some other language that is?
Yeah.
Views and vistas and massing.
Well, views and vistas are basically connected to the massing because the massing would impact views and vistas. So I saw Walter had his thumbs up about that wording. Walter, are you happy with that, or would you change something?
I think that says what it needs to say. Yes.
I think so.
Okay. I will put it up in a second then. Hold on, so you can see it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, this is the first step, so staff will be able to
that the project
give more detail on it too.
Yeah, to obtaining a heritage permit, that a qualified heritage architect be employed for the project, that the views and vistas be considered when adding additional buildings to the site. Yes. Tom had a question.
Looking at this particular site and the size of the site and the length of the time that this family has been on this site, would there, and within the amount of disturbance of land that would take place because of the buildings, would there be an assessment done to look for artifacts that may be hidden in the ground that have accumulated over the years? Would that be part of the process, or would the development just go ahead without any consideration of any artifacts that may be relevant to the site?
Yeah, I can answer that. The architectural investigation or archaeological investigation may be a requirement of either a zoning amendment application or a site plan application. So it's one of the typical requirements that we have through the planning process, and particularly in this area where, again, like you noted, the location of the site, and the length of presence on the site, and proximity to the canal. There may be some significance to that, and potential fines.
How would that be incorporated? I was thinking about it. I think it's something we really do.
Yeah, that one of the things that we will need to do is have a consultation with the region of Niagara, who assists the city with archaeological issues, and we will make a determination as to what materials, studies, and/or documents may need to be submitted with the application, the planning application, in order to deem the application complete, and so that we can proceed forward with the public process and the detailed review. So that we'll have the experts in the field make that determination, and what conditions are appropriate in order for determine that the application is complete. So that'll be in the form of a pre-consultation or pre-application consultation with the various agencies that we need to consult with when we do prior to making an application.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Can we see the motion again, Justin?
Sure.
So can everybody see it and read it? Are we ready to vote on this?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, then can I have a mover and a seconder? Jonathan has moved, Tom has seconded. Then I'm asking the committee to vote that the proposed conceptual development plan titled Thorold Manor Project for Kiefer Mansion be received, and that the Heritage Advisory Committee supports the proposed concept with the following recommendations: that the project be subject to obtaining a heritage permit, that a qualified heritage architect be employed for the project, and that the views and vistas be considered when adding additional buildings to the site. So, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Then it's carried. Okay. Any additional comments from anyone? Walter, Nick, Justin, members of the committee? No? Then I guess that concludes our business for today. Just a quick reminder, Saturday is the grand opening of Beaver Dams Church at the church in the community of Beaver Dams. It's celebrating the completed restoration. I know this has nothing to do with our agenda today. I just thought I'd remind everybody to maybe come out and be part of that. If there's no further business, our next meeting will be held Tuesday in a week, June 24th at 10 in the morning, and it's a hybrid meeting as usual. And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 10:44.